Welcome back to The Price of Business. I'm your host, Kevin Price, talking to you about you and your business. Hessam Parzivand, he's our guest today. He's a regular contributor on The Price of Business, a relatively new one, but one who's made a splash. I've gotten great feedback for the content he's provided. Looking forward, in fact, to getting more content from you. Great stuff. Real quickly, let's begin with your website.
It's parzfirm.com.
Yep, it's as simple as that, parzfirm.com. And I also want to mention that your article on Uber was quite the splash, and you're bringing a pretty controversial topic today. You like controversy. You seem like a pretty laid-back kind of guy, but ultimately you're a lawyer, right?
Exactly. I guess we live and die on controversy.
That's exactly right. Tell us a little bit about what we're going to talk about today. Kind of tee it up for us.
Well, the Department of Labor is they haven't actually even technically proposed the regulations, but they're kind of putting their feelers out for their proposal, and they're trying to raise the threshold for some of the overtime exemptions from $455 a week to $970 a week.
Yeah, and this has, obviously, I think it has far-reaching implications. Talk a little bit, kind of give us a panoramic overview of what you see, the effects.
I think definitely huge implications on the restaurant and retail industries, because you're talking about, needing a $50,000 a year salary in order to be exempt from overtime. So the restaurant and retail industries, hardly anybody in those industries earns $50,000, and there are a lot of assistant managers and things like that who are in that range between $25,000 and $50,000. So that's a huge area. But even kind of more white collar work, a lot of companies have office workers who are in the $40,000 range. So you could definitely see some implications there. I think for people who are lucky enough to be in maybe the 45 to 49 range, I think they might get a bump up because companies will not want to keep track of time. Mm-hmm. So that's a definitive potential consequence.
Yeah. So there's a lot of far-reaching potential issues here, and most of them, it sounds like, saddling a lot of the large businesses. I would say most mid-market and certainly all of the largest companies, they wouldn't even think about this. They're already paying that kind of thing just because of how competitive labor is for them. But 70% of all jobs in this country are created by small businesses. And I think a lot about convenience stores in particular. They to me, convenience stores, fast food restaurants, they're the ones who I see exploit this type of thing, and I don't mean that in a negative way. I'm very libertarian. I believe contractual relationships are between individuals. If the individual doesn't like it, just leave and go work somewhere else. That's kind of how I operate. But I see it having a profound impact, particularly on 70% of the jobs created here in this country with small business owners.
Yeah, I mean, the whole idea behind the Fair Labor Standards Act, obviously, whenever it was passed during the Great Depression, it was the idea that by preventing people from being overworked, we can actually create more jobs. I don't know if that experiment will work in today's time, but that was the whole idea. So, I mean, there is the possibility that we could see this creating more jobs, but you could also see it go the other way. Whereas, for example, let's say, I have 3 or 4, assistant managers, and suddenly, and they're earning $40,000 a year. And let's say I have 4 of them. And then when I'm forced to deal with this situation, I drop down to 3, but let's say they're working 60 hours a week rather than 50 hours a week. So you can see it go both ways. It will be interesting to see in particular how restaurant and retail deal with this. Now, one very, very important note though is that, I mean, the minimum wage is not changing. So you can give me a number, and basically, I can tell you what if you give me a number and you tell me this is how many hours I want this person to work, I can tell you, what your weekly labor cost is and what your hourly wage should be. So, for example, if you have a $40,000 a year worker who's working 50 hours on average, what I would do as an attorney is I would reclassify them to hourly if this regulation goes into effect, and suddenly they would be getting paid $15 an hour rather than getting paid, $40,000 a year. Now,
maybe they may be forced because, again, there's a finite amount of money. Money, you know what I'm saying? As our parents told us, it doesn't grow on trees. And so, in a lot of cases, they're going to have to play hardball negotiation because they still need the same amount of things done in the same number of hours with the same amount of wages that they were working with. So a lot of times they're going to be haggling down to lower wages. Probably a lot of people are going to leave, and so new people are going to get hired at lower wages because ultimately entrepreneurs are called entrepreneurs because of that entrepreneurial nature of, they're not like trees. If you attract a tree with an axe, it can't move, but humans will either take fight, or take flight. And,
right.
I see in the end a lot of beshufflement, a lot of additional strain on employers, but very little net improvement for employees on this type of thing.
Yeah, I agree with you from a dollars and cents standpoint. The cost of doing business is not going to change. And I think employers are going to, try to handle this in a as cost neutral way as possible. No doubt about that.
When do you see time frame, what the possibility are of this happening, of when and that type of thing?
Well,
do you think it's inevitable?
I do think that given, in 2004, the Bush administration, passed regulations that kind of made the overtime exemptions broader. So I do, based on that precedent, I do think that Congress will most likely not be able to stop this. I believe that this is within the executive authority of the Department of Labor. And obviously, same kind of answer, it's going to be before the end of Barack Obama's term.
I personally think he's going to leave a lot of presents between now and the time he leaves, and I'm using quotation marks, presence, particularly for businesses between now and the time he leaves. And I think they're going to happen sooner rather than later, because the later they happen, the easier it'll be for another president to turn them around, because people haven't had a chance to get used to him. If he does this quickly, there'll be 2 years of that model. The next president will have a hard time reversing that, even if he wants to, just because of 2 years of people being used to that model.
True.
And so unless I'm right on steroids, it has an incredible, draconian effect on the small businesses. I just don't see that changing. So we'd love to get more stories like that. And this is very interesting, and I think very important for the listener to know.
Definitely. And obviously, as these changes go into effect, I think it's very important to consult with labor and employment attorneys, regarding these issues. And I'm more than happy to consult with small businesses on it.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic, and I encourage people to contact you, Hessam Parzivand. And again, give us your website.
PARZ as in zebra, firm.com.
Yep, PARZ firm.com. And I strongly encourage you. I tell you right now, this is not the kind of person you want to pursue after you're in trouble. It's the kind of guy you want to pursue. All those little cliches we heard as kids, an ounce of prevention is better than a pound of cure. I tell you, if there's one area where this is particularly true, it's in how you conduct your labor law.
That is correct. No doubt about that.
Hessam, thank you.
Thank you.
By the way, I want you to check out his great content over at priceofbusiness.com. Excellent article about Uber there that I got great feedback on. You'll see why when you read the article. Plus, excellent audio we have there from him on usdailyreview.com. We're going to have more for you right after this on The Price of Business.